A war starts, people are dying, the Pope releases a message. Another bombing, more casualties, the Pope releases another message. A city gets leveled, civilians are trapped, the Pope releases a message. At some point, if you're watching this, a thought crosses your mind. If this man genuinely believes human life is sacred, if that is the entire foundation of everything he stands for, why is he just talking? People are dying right now, not in a metaphor, actually dying. And the most morally authoritative person on the planet is typing messages. Why is he just talking? Why doesn't he do something? Most people land on the same explanation pretty quickly. The Pope is a religious leader. He is not a head of state. He has no military, no enforcement power, no budget that could meaningfully intervene in a war. Vatican City is 0.44 square kilometers, the smallest country on Earth. The Pope cannot sanction anyone, he cannot deploy anyone, he cannot force anyone to stop. And on top of that, the moment a religious leader steps into direct political action, he risks the one thing his entire position depends on: being above the fight. Stay neutral, speak to everyone, represent something larger than any single conflict. So the conclusion writes itself. The Pope talks because that is all he can do. He is a spiritual figure operating inside real-world limits. The messages are not a choice, they are the ceiling. Except there's a problem with that explanation. In 1980, Pope John Paul II traveled to Poland, a country under Soviet-backed communist control, and stood in front of 1 million people. He didn't just deliver a message. He directly energized the Solidarity movement, the labor union that would eventually bring down the Polish communist government. The Vatican provided funding. The Pope provided the moral momentum. It was direct intervention in a political situation, and it worked. In 2014, Pope Francis personally mediated the diplomatic normalization between the United States and Cuba. Two countries that hadn't had formal relations in over 50 years, the Pope didn't release a message. He made phone calls, he sent letters, he put himself in the middle of a geopolitical negotiation and helped close it. So the ceiling isn't as low as it looked. The Pope has intervened before, directly, in situations with real political stakes. Which means the explanation that he talks because it's all he can do doesn't fully hold, because when it mattered in a particular way, previous popes found a way to do more than talk. So why not now? That question doesn't have a clean answer yet, but it means the limitation explanation has a crack in it. So let's try a different angle. What if the limitation explanation has it backwards? What if the Pope doesn't talk because he can't do anything else, but because talking from that specific position is the most powerful thing available? What if the moment he picks up a phone and starts making deals or shows up at a border and starts organizing, he doesn't gain power, he loses it? What if the thing that makes the Pope's words land the way they do is precisely that he doesn't do anything else? That the words carry the weight they carry because the person saying them hasn't spent that weight on anything smaller? Not a ceiling, a choice. And if that's true, then the question isn't why he doesn't act. The question is what kind of action actually reaches the furthest from where he's standing. Start with where he's standing. The Pope speaks for 1.4 billion Catholics. Not as a politician, not as a commentator, as the moral center of the largest religious institution on earth. That means when he opens his mouth, it doesn't register as one person's opinion. It registers as a moral verdict. The same sentence said by anyone else is a take. Said by the Pope, it's a judgment. Trump moves crowds with social media. The Pope moves consciences with a single statement. Those are different weapons hitting different targets. Now think about what happens when he moves beyond the statement. If the Pope organizes a protest, it becomes a political event. Political events have sides. And the moment there are sides, the other side can push back. But a moral declaration doesn't work that way. When the Pope says what is happening is wrong, the only way to answer that is to argue you're not wrong. And the moment you're standing in front of the world arguing that civilian deaths are actually fine, you've already lost. You can throw a punch back at a punch. You can't throw a punch at a conscience without hitting yourself. Now think about what happens after he speaks. If the Pope flies to a war zone and personally negotiates a ceasefire, he owns the outcome. If it holds, he gets credit. If it collapses, he gets the blame, and more importantly, he gets pulled into the conflict as a participant, not a judge. But when he releases a statement and someone reads it and decides to act, that action belongs to the person who took it. The Pope pointed the direction. The walking was someone else's. A compass doesn't move, but without it, nobody knows which way is north. There is a kind of power that only works if you don't spend it. The Pope's words land the way they do because he hasn't traded his position for results. He hasn't picked a side in a way that makes him just another side. He hasn't attached his name to an outcome that can fail. The further you stay from the fight, the further your voice carries into it. Acting can be the thing that ends the ability to act. And sometimes the most powerful move available is to stay exactly where you are and say exactly what you see. So back to the original question, war is happening, people are dying, the Pope releases a message, and the question was, if human life is genuinely sacred to this man, why is he just talking? Here is the reframe. He is not just talking from that position with that weight behind it, aimed at the conscience of 1.4 billion people and every government that has to answer to them. That is not the consolation prize for not being able to act. That is the act. The Pope doesn't have an army. He has something that armies can't produce and can't defeat. A moral verdict that lands in every language, in every country, on every side of every conflict, simultaneously, and that gets harder to ignore the longer the silence around it grows. We looked at the messages and saw in action, that was the wrong frame. From where he stands, the message is the most powerful thing in the room, not despite the fact that it's just words, but because of it.